Today, we find out if gamers joined the fight with Avalanche, or did Shinra win the day? People have been waiting for this one. Let's find out if anyone played Final Fantasy VII Remake. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am BD, and this is Did Anyone Play? A series where we investigate, analyze, and determine the truth about how much gamers have actually played a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake. How do we do this? We use trophy and achievement milestones within games, and then compare those results to an ever-growing database to evaluate and rank games compared to the rest of the industry. Using objective data and statistical comparisons, we can draw conclusions. We aren't reviewing the game in a traditional sense. Our goal is to provide analysis that can be better used to understand player preference while ignoring game sales and hype to ensure we see reality as it truly is. Please drop a like or a sub to the channel if you want more of these types of videos. We're just starting out, so anything you can do is very much appreciated. And a quick spoiler warning, as we may be talking about some elements of late game progression. So let's find out if anyone actually played Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4, PS5, and Steam. Please remember that all percentages we'll be talking about here come from the total number of players that have actually launched and or played the game, not bought the game. So these results are a full reflection on how gamers played Final Fantasy VII Remake. The first milestone that players will likely reach is called One Time Gig. This milestone is achieved once a player completes Chapter 1 after navigating the Mako reactor, blowing it up, and defeating the Scorpion Sentinel. So how many players have made it to this first very early milestone for Remake? On PS4, 78.5% of players got to this first milestone. For PS5, it was 74.2%, and for Steam, it was 87.4%. So let's pause here to evaluate. Remake is off to a great start on Steam. For PS4, Remake is doing alright, but PS5 has lost 25% of its players before they complete Chapter 1. Here's a quick look in graph form, and I put the database average up there. Steam is well above the industry average, and PS4 is better than the average as well, if only slightly. PS5 is a hair under average, so I'll have to keep an eye on that to see how that tracks going forward. So what is Final Fantasy VII Remake? It's an action RPG single-player game that is the first in a planned 3-game series retelling the classic game that is Final Fantasy VII. Remake takes place almost entirely in Midgar, a dystopian city run by a powerful corporation, Shinra. The player controls Cloud, a merc who joins Avalanche but has his own history to deal with. Gameplay combines real-time action with role-playing elements. It was developed by Square Enix Business Division 1 and published by Square Enix. Remake released on PS4 in April of 2020, PS5 in June of 2021, and Steam in December of 2021. The second milestone all players would likely reach is called Escape Artist. This is awarded after the player completes Chapter 2 of the story after they escape the tunnels and navigate through the city to reach the train. How many players have made it to this milestone? So for Steam, 80.3% of players reached it. PS4 is at 70.7%, and PS5 is 67.8%. This is actually a pretty good hold across all platforms, where there's only a 7 to 8% player loss. Not a bad result at all. It's always good to understand the competition a game was up against when it launched. Because of the multiple launches for this game, we will look specifically at the first launch on PS4. What was happening around April 10th, 2020 in the gaming world? Well, titles like Doom Eternal, Resident Evil 3, and MotoGP 20 came out around this time on the platforms. Looking at Google Trends here, we see that Final Fantasy VII Remake in blue was very strong at the time of release. Doom Eternal and Resident Evil 3 had solid hype, but well below Remake. So hype was big for Remake, and I think we can say the competition was below average. We like to pick a mid-game milestone for our third marker. For Remake, we chose Never the Bride. This is awarded after completing Chapter 9 of the main story. How many players are left at this point in the game? For PS4, it's at 47%. On PS5, we have 46%, and finally for Steam, 43.9% are left. Remake is still trending above average on all platforms, but Steam has taken a very large drop from Milestone 2 in comparison. Steam is now last, while PS4 has taken up the pole position. How did Remake do with critics? Well, Metacritic for PlayStation 4 has it at an 87 out of 100. And for Steam, the reviews show very positive recent and on time with over 20,000 reviews. These are strong reviews, and you can see that major review outlets scored Remake strong with an average around 88. The reception was very positive for the game overall. The most important milestone is our fourth one. This is for completing the main objective and what we will ultimately base our final ranking on. It definitely shows how many players finished the game and truly played Remake. This milestone is called Destiny's Crossroads, and it's awarded for completing Chapter 18 and defeating Sephiroth. Where does Remake end up on the different platforms? On PS4, 35% of players completed the game. For Steam, it was 29.3%, and for PS5, 37.2% of players did just that. Let's pause here since we've reached the end of the game. We want to check the percentage of players that quit each platform after making it through the first milestone, but failing to reach game completion. Here, all platforms are doing better than the database average. PS5 is doing really well with player retention in this regard, and PS4 isn't too far behind. Steam struggled the most, but it's still slightly better than the industry average. Finally, to get a feel for how the completionist treated this game, the rare milestone 5 chosen for Remake is called Ultimate Weapon. This milestone can be achieved if the player can defeat the Pride and Joy prototype in the Shinra VR challenge. To even do this, a player must complete all Coliseum challenges and all previous Shinra VR battle challenges, including the ones that are unlocked in hard difficulty only. How many players took on this challenge? For PS5, we see that 5.6% of players reached this milestone. For PS4, it is 3.8%, and for Steam, 3% of players did it. Now let's see the full picture. Here are the raw milestones for our platforms for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we've also added the database averages for each milestone in gray for comparison purposes. Let's get into it. For Remake, the start isn't too bad. Steam comes blasting out of the gate while PS5 stumbles a bit. But as we move on to milestone 2, we see a very solid hold across the platforms for Remake. Then something interesting happens. We do see players drop off, but Steam takes a much larger hit than the rest. All results are still well above the industry average, so that's good. For milestone 4, Steam continues to drop a bit more than the rest, with PS5 ending up the strongest, and PS5 continues that strength all the way through to milestone 5. So this is our final tally for Final Fantasy VII Remake milestones, but now let's see how the game stacks up against all other games in our database and find out if anyone truly played Remake. We use milestone 4 as our ultimate ranking target. Here are the results for each platform for milestone 4 once again. It's time to reveal the final score Final Fantasy VII Remake has in our database. Here we go. Steam is at a 7 out of 10, PS5 is at an 8 out of 10, and PS4 is an 8 out of 10. A lot of gamers played Remake on PS5 and PS4, and a decent amount of players got through it on Steam as well. This is a strong showing for Remake and displays an ability to keep players engaged through to the end of the story and a really strong retention rate. So those are the scores, but let's see if we can tease out some other observations by looking at these results in different ways. It's time for the deep dive. Let's start with progressive player loss. Each milestone shows how many total players have stopped playing the game at that particular point. Here we see that the strong start for Steam, and into milestone 2 we see the fairly strong hold across the platforms. But at milestone 3 we see Steam take that huge leap in losses, and then to milestone 4 we see Steam continue to lead in losses, but we also see PS5 retain players better. Moving on, we can look at milestone player retention. This calculation only takes into account player population loss as a percentage compared to the previous milestone. PS5 loses the most at milestone 1, but then you can see that at every milestone after that, PS5 begins to improve so that by milestone 3, it always has the least players lost by all platforms. Almost opposite, Steam struggles with player retention starting at milestone 3. How about completionists? How did the rarest milestones shake out on the different platforms? PS5 is dominant with 45%, and PS4 is next at 30%. Steam is respectable at 24%, but clearly PlayStation was the platform for completionists this time. Finally, we check on early versus late game retention. When you read a chart like this, the best performers are further away from the center of the circle. Early game, Steam is rocking all the others, and even moving off my chart a bit. For the end game, we actually see that both PlayStation platforms well outperform Steam. And finally, for completionists, we see PS5 keeping the lead. Let's take one final look at all the platforms and their milestone 4 results, but this time we show you the full percent rank within our database. This is to give you a detailed view of how the rankings played out. Use this data as you will. Let's wrap this up. So what are our major takeaways from all the data? Final Fantasy VII Remake was a bit of a risk, but it seems to have paid off in a big way. We see that gamers responded to Remake by playing through the game. Both PlayStation platforms ranked 8 in our database and Steam ranked 7. These are very strong scores. We also see that Remake had great player retention specifically between Milestone 1 and Milestone 2, and that helped set the stage for this strong result by Milestone 4. One particular behavior we saw in Steam was a 50% loss in players from Milestone 2 to Milestone 4. At the same time, PS5 only saw a loss of 30% of players between those same two milestones. It is difficult to tell what might have caused this 20% difference, but the stronger start for Steam at the beginning of the game may have just pushed the player loss a little later than the PlayStation platforms. Overall though, the results for Remake across all platforms is fairly close, and that is interesting in itself, as we have to remember that the PS5 version of Remake launched 1 year after PS4, and the Steam version launched a year and a half after PS4. So regardless of the time disparity of the release versions, gamers generally played and experienced Remake in the same way. That's always fun to see that a big difference in release timing doesn't create a big difference in how gamers consume the game. Final Fantasy VII Remake has clearly been a success with gamers. Time will tell if the entire experiment works out well, but for Remake, a lot of gamers played the game and experienced it as the developers intended. This new vision of a classic RPG certainly seems to have hit a sweet spot. And make no mistake, this could have gone very badly for Square Enix, but it didn't, and that's to their credit. Remake is clearly a love letter to fans of the original, and a welcoming hand for those new to the story to offer them a way in. The additional character development, deeper world building, and new style of action RPG combat really takes Remake to a new level, and it clearly captivated gamers and kept them playing to the end. Hopefully, the success of Remake may encourage other developers to take risks with older properties and rethink how to deliver new gaming experiences with classic stories. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to do all the YouTube support stuff. I'd love to read any comments you have down below. What conclusions do you all take from this data? And of course, feel free to suggest the next game we should look at to determine if anyone played it. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.